Hey everybody, welcome to Dead Reckoning. I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Mattson.
How's your week, Brian?
You know, got some sickness running around my household, now that you ask. All of my girls have been ill, so I've been, doing laundry and dishes and, keeping the household going to the grocery store a lot, trying to keep my kids fed, because it'd be bad if they starved to death.
That's very domesticated of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about your week?
Computer's been failing big time. In fact,
we noticed.
Let's not even go there. I finally got the cold that's been going around my house, my kids, and my wife.
I can't really hear it, so that's okay.
Well, I woke up yesterday morning with a sore throat, and I'm just congested today, but I've been taking some drugs so I can talk clearly and fantastically to you. And then I have a little minor, teeny, tiny head throbbing from the bottle of wine I put down last night.
Yeah.
It was a long day yesterday.
When you drink a bottle of wine, that tends to happen.
Well, though.
That's what the Bible says.
You gonna Jesus juke me right now?
No.
Jesus juke.
This is Dead Reckoning, and this is the Spindle segment of our show, where Jay and I look at news and current events through the lens of our Christian faith. You're going to want to check out the other segments of our show. Today, in honor of the pig, Jay and I do the how to host
your own open house happy hour where you invite anybody and everybody you want, and you make homemade chips, salsa, and margaritas, and we actually give you
recipes. How to do it.
Fantastic.
I've always loved the TV Food Network, and I always wanted to be on the TV Food Network, and it was really cool because we went to the kitchen and we actually were there, the lights, the cameras, and all that. We were making, actually I was just drinking margaritas. Jay was making,
chips. It was
chips,
awesome.
and Molly did some salsa.
Molly's cranking out the salsa, yeah.
And it's an awesome segment, so check that out.
I've always wanted to be on the Food Network just so I can eat all the food. So what I do is I go to these really great restaurants that are unhealthy for you and pretend like I'm on the Food Network.
Yeah, pretend you're a food critic.
I talk to myself and I critique myself, and then I get on Yelp and post a bunch of reviews.
I just finished a book by Ruth Reichel, who was the former food critic of the New York Times. I believe it's, I can't even remember the name, something with sapphires in the title. But it's the story of how she got the job at the New York Times and had to be the New York Times food critic, and so she had to disguise herself. And so she made up all of these characters that she would play when she went in it. Very entertaining read. In our Above the Pay Grade segment today.
It's so far above our pay grade, Brian had a hard time even understanding what he was talking about.
No, it's fantastic. We have David Bahnsen, the president and founder of the Bahnsen Group at Morgan Stanley, obviously a Wall Street investment and wealth management firm. David comes on to talk to us about the 2008 financial crisis, and this is not the ordinary sort of rhetoric that you hear.
No, Brian and I are the bad guys.
Yeah.
I would say
Wall Street's not the bad guy.
You should tease it. Give him that quote.
Wall Street's not the bad guy.
Quote.
Government's not the bad guy. There's a third villain. I'm not going to give him the... You need... Stick around. No, it steals the thunder of the end of that segment, man. I'm not going to steal the thunder.
No, but see, they hear the quote. It's like marketing 101. You'll hear the quote. You'll be like,
fine.
That's amazing. And then they'll be like, I got to watch the interview. You want to hear the argument and everything has to say to building up to that point. So that's why you want to give them the quote. Did I win?
David basically says that a house is a home to live in and raise a family in, not a trading card.
And that has everything to do with the financial crisis.
Has everything to do. The cult of home ownership. And David's going to talk about that and other things, and that's going to be an excellent segment. So
commentary,
tune in.
Commentary. I hear you talking about... you're continuing a discussion on the Apostles' Creed.
Correct.
And
Doctrine of Creation today.
Ooh.
Doctrine of Creation, and how Christianity provides a unique view of the world that fosters scientific inquiry. That is not a common thing that you hear these days.
No.
And so I'm gonna explain why in the commentary segment.
Awesome.
So
I think that's our show. So we got a good spindle for you, and we'll start that right now.
Go for it. Are you farsighted or something? How far can you hold
I'm
it
like
up?
my father-in-law.
Yeah. Hey,
And my
no
dad.
mocking family members on our TV show. That generally doesn't go over well.
Your mom is kind of a fun... Well, How is your mom? In case you didn't know, Brian's mom has cancer.
Yes, my mother, our fan.
Our biggest fan.
I was just going to say our fan. No, we have more
call her our
more.
biggest.
We have more than just my mom. Anyway, Yeah, Mom's kind of the running joke
Barely more
around
than
this
it
show.
will.
If you haven't noticed,
She's
every
the only
time
one that matters.
every time Jay starts to get off color, I always have to say, "Mom, don't turn it off." It's kind of fun. It's a cool gag. Mom's doing very well. She has one more round of chemotherapy to undergo, and then after that it will be radiation. But the prognosis is looking good. She's healthy. She's strong. She's has a great attitude, and so we continue to covet your prayers, and it's going well. So thanks for
Awesome.
asking. Yeah,
Very cool.
cool. What's on your Spindle?
I have this is going to be a mouthful. What'sbestnext.com has put up a blog post that my wife
What's
sent to me.
best next?
I don't know. It's just name. They seem to be a pretty big site.
How much
I mean,
wood
they
can
got
a
all sorts of-
woodchuck chuck?
I got sort of stuff. Their subtitle is "Leadership and the World of Work from a Christian Perspective."
Hey, that sounds like it's up our alley. So, all right, go ahead and read it.
Anyway, the guy who's running the site, he posts, I've been meaning to blog this for 2 years now, from Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs biography. Here's the excerpt. Even when he was barely conscious, his strong personality came through. At one point, the pulmonologist tried to put a mask over his face when he was deeply sedated. Jobs ripped it off and mumbled that he hated the design and refused to wear it. Though barely able to speak, he ordered them to bring 5 different options for the mask, and he would pick a design he liked. The doctors looked at Powell, puzzled. She was finally able to distract him so they could put on the mask. He also hated the oxygen monitor they put on his finger. He told them it was ugly, too complex. He suggested ways it could be designed more simply. He was very attuned to every nuance of the environment and objects around him, and that drained him, Powell recalled. So, obviously, he's just pointing out that this is stinking hilarious. Barely conscious, and he's asking for 5 different design changes.
He's
fighting for his
tinkering.
life.
The oxygen monitor looks like Microsoft. Please. This needs to look more like iPod. I love it. That's fantastic. Steve Jobs.
Steve, there's a reason Apple is the company they are now.
Apple just surpassed Coca-Cola.
Did they?
In the news, surpassed Coca-Cola in terms of the top brand in the world.
That is impressive.
I happen to get the new operating system on my Apple devices, the iOS 7, and really like it. If you got Apple devices and you haven't upgraded, I'd highly recommend it. I'm a big fan.
My wife's been pretty happy with it. Although we did have one, episode 3 of the Spindle could not be watched on any sort of Apple device. It was very weird in Brian's house.
It was not just in my house. It was on.
That's right. Molly
on the
couldn't get it on
devices.
hers,
That was very strange.
Very strange.
Hopefully, I don't know what kind of bug that was. It's probably YouTube or something. So
It's
anyway,
fine on my Microsoft devices.
we really should do like a spoof Microsoft Apple commercial with us just like this, and you can have your Surface, and I'll have my iPad. Then we'll write our own. We'd probably get in trouble for that.
We would totally get in trouble for that.
Yeah, we can't do that.
I don't want to do that.
We should talk about the government shutdown.
We should. Oh, speaking of government shutdown, I'm going to pull out my Windows phone.
Windows.
Branded entertainment right here. Where's our sponsorship?
Yeah,
okay. So we have a buddy named John. John, I'll just leave it at John.
John.
His name's John. He works for the government.
It's at John's Buffalo, right?
At John's Buffalo. Follow him on Twitter.
He's very funny.
He's very
funny guy.
Anyway, he's been texting me for over a week now about how awesome this mandatory vacation is going to be for.
Yeah, he's a non-essential federal government employee.
So doing my part to aid the trouble that's going on,
the downtrodden.
right now. And I posted this on my Twitter account yesterday. Is that I took him out for lunch and a beer because he's really struggling right now. He's been in his he shows up at the bar. He's like, I had to find my pants.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I've
terrible.
been sitting around in my sweats.
I mean, he has to
and
catch up
underwear.
on all of the soap
He's
operas.
like, I'm watching Lifetime movies. He's like, I love it.
man.
It's fantastic. So today he posts essential government vacation day number 2. Things are looking grim now. Thinking about opening up our canned goods. I'm also so cold. Just so cold. Oh, never mind. I'm not wearing pants.
Much hilarity.
Much hilarity from the non-essential government
this
employee.
sort of an event always opens itself up to the obvious jokes about government employees.
And then there's the people who get offended.
being not
and you're
essential and not working and being lazy.
Brian,
and,
have a heart.
yeah, and I did get in a little trouble on Twitter about that. Look, generalizations are generalizations. Personal outrage and insult has to be supplied by the recipient. But it's true. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I'm not a political analyst by any stretch, but I want to give you my sense of the politics of this government shutdown. I think it's going to play bad for everybody, but I think it's going to be a little bit worse for Republicans, and this is why. This all came about because of a continuing resolution to fund the government and a debt ceiling increase. This is an issue about profligate spending and debt. And it got turned into, by Ted Cruz and a certain faction in Congress, into an Obamacare fight, an Obamacare issue. I'm not saying those two are unrelated. I'm saying that politically, the optics of it are unrelated. And here's the problem. It resonates with the American people when you talk about our debt problem. We have a serious debt problem and a spending problem. When you make this hill an Obamacare hill to die on, here's what the American people hear. Barack Obama got elected. He had majorities in both houses. He got the law passed narrowly, but he got it passed. We had midterm elections. Republicans took the House. We're not able to overturn Obamacare. We went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said Obamacare is here to stay. We then had another election in which Barack Obama won and beat Mitt Romney. The chances to get rid of Obamacare have all passed us by, and now what it looks like with Ted Cruz making every fight about a destroy Obamacare fight, I think the American people say, you guys are really sore losers.
Did I just hear you say that Obamacare is here to stay and you are a staunch Republican?
I did not say Obamacare is here to stay. You didn't really hear me say that.
Okay. I also heard you say, as a Republican, the fight's over.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
What?
No, I think
I
I think that Obamacare needs to be opposed. Here's the problem: making this particular debt ceiling increase about a last-ditch effort to get rid of Obamacare sounds desperate to the American people, and it sounds like sour grapes and sore loser. I just don't think the optics of it were right. I think had you made this, listen, we got to stop spending money. Hello, people, $1 trillion deficits every year Obama's been in office. This is a problem. I think the American people resonate with that. That wasn't the fight that was made. It was made about Obamacare. I think that was the wrong way to go. But who am I? I'm not a political analyst. We will see what the fallout will be.
You did a mighty fine job there, sir.
Well, thank you. Rest assured, the non-essential employees of the government will be back to work soon.
You just have, and with back pay, most likely, that's what happened back in '95. You know, you gave me a fantastic launching pad for my next Spindle item.
Excellent. Let's hear it.
So the American people, as much as we want to think we are so amazing, we have just as big a problems as the government themselves. Yeah, we're tired of governments racking up $1 trillion in debt.
But we love debt.
Whereas we will rack up $1.2 trillion in college debt
Student
that
loan
probably
aid.
won't get paid back. And I read 2 articles this week. One of them was in the LA Times. The other was was something on Yahoo Finance. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the ability that students don't have to pay back these loans. And we're talking, you go get an Ivy League education now, it's going to be a couple $100,000, $300,000.
It's $100,000 a year, probably.
That's what I'm saying. It's just going to be outrageous. I mean, 100,000. Your house. It's going to be the price of a house,
right?
And,
but you don't have a house. You have a piece of paper,
right? You have a piece of paper,
an ugly piece of paper.
You walk out into the job market. Now, back in the mid '90s, and I'm not a business analyst, but I'll analyze. And back in the mid '90s and early 2000s, you had a giant tech boom. You had a lot of people wanting bachelor's degrees. You had to have a bachelor's degree to get into these technical positions. And then the tech boom dies off, and you have lots of people out of jobs with bachelor's degrees who are now going out and working at the retail stores,
yep.
the fast food restaurants. They're getting server positions, bartender positions. Yep. So, there's a guy in New York, and this was the Yahoo Finance article. There was a guy in New York he came out of college, I think, with like $80,000 or $90,000 in debt, and now he's bartending
with a bachelor's degree.
With a bachelor's degree,
that's
because
painful.
he can't get a job in his field. He's fighting against guys with master's degrees elsewhere, and he's bartending because he can make a ton more money. And he's like, I'm not gonna go back to college with this kind of debt. My buddy came out of go back, get my career with this kind of debt over my shoulders. And my buddy, who went to law school, he came out with about $85,000 in debt. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it's going to take me 20 years to pay this off.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're trying to start a family. start a career that's not going to pay. And that's the thesis of the articles, is these jobs are not going to help you, are not going to pay for your college education.
We should have
You're not
at
gonna
some
make enough
point.
money.
At some point, we really need to have somebody on the show to talk about the higher education bubble. Because what's happened is our economy is growing at unbelievably anemic growth. If you look over the last decade, what are we at, 2% maybe? Economic growth.
Yeah.
So the economy is expanding, and yet over that same amount of time, college tuitions have gone up 40% or something like that. Are you getting 40% more benefit, economic benefit, from the degree? No. A higher education bubble is going to burst, and we are going to have a very new day in America as to how higher education is done.
So what do we do, Brian? And here's what I suggest we do. I grew up in a generation, as did you, we're the same age, where our parents were like, you guys need to go to college. You don't have to know what you're going to do. You don't have to know where you're going to go.
Get the degree.
You can get the degree. You need to have the degree. Well, what we're seeing is that the degrees are
devalued.
Are meaningless. They're devalued.
They are devalued.
Master, people are going, well, I can't get a job with this, so I'm going to go get a master's degree. So now we're going to see
now we have hundreds and hundreds of PhDs who can't get jobs. So
here's what I'm thinking. We have to have a chance. And that's the culture I grew up in. My parents were like, go out and get a job, do whatever you can to get a degree. And then we need to start thinking a little bit more smartly about what we're encouraging our children to do as this new generation comes up. There's not a whole lot that I, as a general individual, can do to change how much it costs to go to college.
Right.
But what I can do is encourage a different model. Perhaps maybe it's a trade school, maybe it's a particular vocational school, maybe it's
distance learning is going to be big.
Maybe it's doing what I did, taking a year off and taking a year off, saving money, living cheaply. And I graduated debt-free from college, thankfully.
As did I.
But I
went
to
the
PhD.
I graduated from college debt-free, but I went to the local. I went to the local state university branch.
College. Yeah.
I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and so that's important.
So there's a lot of things to think about there, but we have to start thinking smartly about this. It doesn't make any sense, especially as a Christian who believes you need to be a good steward of everything you've been given.
Yeah.
To go out there and say, just go out and spend $400,000. Oh, and by the way, just party, man. I'm not even going to bring up. I'm not even going to bring
really
up
foolish
the hookup
idea.
Culture.
Yeah,
just blowing money to party. But start thinking smartly about this stuff. Think about new alternative ways, because it's not. I don't think it's becoming, unless you can actually have the money to pay for this. Taking out a loan, your kid's going to graduate at 28
for undergraduate
years old
school. This is a very
$300,000 in debt.
Very bad idea. Hey,
and he's going to make $30,000 a year. Ain't going to happen.
So as we close the Spindle here, I thought I would mention that we just received word that Tom Clancy has passed away at the age of 66.
Man.
Tom Clancy is a big part of my childhood. I began reading his books, I believe, in the 6th grade.
I think I was 9.
I was in 10 so maybe. And I am a big fan of Tom Clancy's work, particularly the earlier work where he wasn't having co-writers all the time. I was a big fan, and in the 6th grade, I wrote Tom Clancy a letter.
Did you?
I wrote him a letter, and I just told him everything I loved about his books, and I asked him a couple questions, and then I told him that I really liked his books, but I didn't like that he swore so much in his books. And Tom Clancy wrote me a personal letter back, and a really nice letter. It was clear that he wrote it, and it was he had read my letter, and he answered my questions, and he even asked me a question about Billings, Montana, because one of his characters had a connection to Billings.
Really?
And he wrote me this letter, and it said, P.S. He said, I don't swear in my books. My characters do, and that's not quite the same thing, pal. Touche. Tom Clancy, thanks for that childhood thrill. Thank you for all the thrills in your books. Rest in peace.
I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Mattson.
And this is Dead Reckoning.